The dawn of civilization. Primitive. Dangerous. Exciting. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs
the most civilized caveman I have ever seen.
Look who's come out of his cave.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is James from the Cave Dweller Music Podcast. Today I'm joined by Maddie from Beaver Mosh. She is a fantastic reviewer of music, all things heavy, all things underground. Make sure you check her out on YouTube. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm kind of used to being the one that's like being on your side of the screen, so it's kind of interesting to be like the one being asked the questions here.
It's different, isn't it? I was a guest on a podcast this week from LA called Social Primates, and it's the first time I've guested, and it's a really different experience being on the other side of the questions.
Yeah. I recently did one I was on a Judas Priest cast and kind of had them talk about a track that I loved from Judas Priest and kind of dissect it. But that was my first kind of experience being on the other end of it. So yeah, it's definitely different.
What was the track that they dissected that you love?
I picked Take These Chains from Screaming for Vengeance. It's kind of a deep cut, not really like exactly released as a single, but it never really took off as like the big track from that album. But it's like, I don't know why, it's very anthemic. I just always really enjoyed that Judas Priest track.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, they're a seminal band. There's so many tracks in there. Even if you like ignore the hits, there's so many buried in there that are fantastic and worth your time. And there's so many obscure albums in the discography people don't even seem to pay attention to as well.
Yeah, I mean, they had their whole 70s run before they even got their like big breakthrough record. Like they like got their hits later in their career.
Definitely. Those earlier albums are really cool, especially that first one. It's got a really different feel to all of the later stuff.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with rock and roll, but Sad Wings of Destiny, I'm definitely like I own that on wax. Like I'm a huge fan of that record, and then Sin After Sin and like Stained Class, those 70s records, fantastic, good, great stuff.
Yeah, Sad Wings of Destiny is one of my favorites. I absolutely love that one. And then of course, just like everyone else, I love Painkiller. How can you not?
No.
And then later career, I know people kind of give it a bit of shit, but I really like Nostradamus. I thought it was a cool album.
Yeah, I am not as familiar with that one. I do know that it does have like kind of that split opinion. I absolutely adored Firepower. Like that doesn't happen that often, right? Where a band just like is so late in their career and they just put out one of their best records, like
right,
so late. So like 30, like 40, I don't even know how many decades into their career.
They still got gas in the tank. It's like Blue Oyster Cult did the same thing. They had like those recent albums, last few that, I mean, they've been going since the 60s, and then they brought out some of their best, heaviest work like in the last 5 years or so. It was crazy. I don't know where that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, sometimes bands just figure it out and like just turn on a new leaf. It's like, whoa, all right, cool, let's go.
Yeah, you know who else did that recently was Yes, the 70s prog band. They actually brought out a new album this year that is phenomenal.
I missed that. I love some of Yes's earlier catalogs. Heck, it's funny. I just interviewed the anchor at a prog metal band, and we talked a lot about like prog rock and that. So that's cool to hear. I'm gonna have to go check that out because like Fragile and those records, Close to the Edge, great stuff.
Yes, some of the best music ever written. Those albums. Because I had no idea, but they actually put out like 5 albums in the last 12 years, which I didn't even.
No fuck.
They weren't on my radar. But I went back and listened to them, and they're okay. But this latest one is like, it's back to the old sort of Yes feel. It's really creative, and they have a new vocalist, which brought a lot more life and energy into the sound. It's a lot of, I think it's the original members almost all except the vocalist.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely worth it. And then Jethro Tull brought out another album as well this year.
Damn, like, so you are definitely checking in on the like modern like prog rock revival that more than I am.
I was so I stream with Tidal, the app Tidal. And they have like a recommendation section, and the algorithm on that is like by far the best of any service I've used. And I logged on one day and said, you may like Yes, Jethro Tull, and Peter Gabriel. I'm like, what's happening? Like all these dudes they're back again. So
I go for it.
oh, sorry. I was gonna say, what have you been listening to this year? What's kind of stood out to you as worthy of your time?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. There's so much metal. Like I mean, today is Friday that we're recording this, and it's new release day, and every Friday, I am sitting down, probably playing some games, and just going through as many metal records as I can and seeing what hits and what I want to talk about. Of course, there are stuff that is like my favorites of the year. Some things that have really stuck out. The new Hell rapper, obviously, I think it might be his best. I got to interview Kosnat Shenye, who is also based now in Minneapolis, where I am from, but this very interesting kind of dissonant black metal project that also brings in some sound from kind of the non-Western canon, and it's some of the most interesting black metal I've heard all year. The new Smolder is one of my favorite, just kind of trad heavy metal records. Another Minneapolis-based project is the new Majesties, melodic death metal done the right way. You know, that very classic, you know, at the gates, you know, Gothenburg sound. You know, old In Flames.
Yep.
Yeah. Those are some of the highlights so far, I would say. I mean, there's so many more that I'm just like not getting at the top of the dome right now. But yes,
it's been a huge year. It's like since COVID started, it's been I've always said it's the golden age, like a golden age revival of underground music. The quality and quantity of the stuff that's coming out is just absolutely ridiculous compared to like what was coming out on a yearly basis prior to COVID. And I think part of that, there's two reasons I would say. One is that a lot of people took a step back from playing live and actually had to record because they couldn't play live. Yeah. So you had a lot of bands who had a really good live sort of routine who actually said, well, maybe we should put some more albums out. It's been a while. And then there's a lot of people who never played before who were kind of trapped at home going crazy. Say, all right, I'm going to try my hand at music, who had never made music before. So I think it's just people had time and a reason to play. And I think a lot of music came out of that. That's been fantastic.
People had time and also with no kind of, we didn't know when live music was going to come back. People, a lot of these artists were just like, okay, I got to put all of my creative energy in just simply the studio. And with that, you know, there was a lot of, I think more risk were taken, right? Like there was like, this is all the thought was behind what can I make interesting right here, right now, without the idea of like, okay, I gotta get on the road in, you know, a few months.
Exactly. Yeah, their money and their time went straight into the recording instead of having to budget for a future tour.
100%.
Yeah. As far as like what I've been listening to, have you heard the new Grotesquerie album?
Yes. Yeah, I was that came out a couple weeks ago, right? Yeah, that is some gross. I mean, it's kind of in the name, death metal, just savage stuff.
It is. It's awesome. It's like feels like straight out of the 90s. Like it's fantastic. And then the other one I've been obsessed with came out in January is Dark Steel and Fire by The Gauntlet. Have you heard that one?
Oh yes. That's like that is like that's almost like some like kind of first wave black metal revival, like very Bathory-esque.
Yes. Yep. Super Bathory-esque. I love it. That's awesome. I love those throwback sort of bands. They're really cool. And then the other one I've been obsessed with all year is a band called Thanatomas. Album's called Hades. Have you heard that one?
That one I don't think I'm as familiar with.
Okay, I'll send it to you after on Twitter. But it's stupidly. I guess you would call it war metal. It's like more than that. But like the production is just dumb. It's so raw. It's like aggressively raw caveman style production. Really, really fun. If you like that super like punishing, like I guess bestial as they call it sound.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have a water bottle I take to work that I have an Antichrist Seed Machine sticker on. Like I definitely get into that war metal sound. There was an interesting release, now that you mentioned that came out earlier this year. Actually, it's interesting because they now have two from this year, but the band I believe pronounced Heffidvan. And it's just this chaotic, pummeling war metal record with some interesting like folk elements, and somehow that works. It's like
Wow.
demented and atmospheric at the same time, and it's just the most interesting mood that I've heard this year. And it's just it on paper that doesn't sound like it makes sense, but it really does when you listen.
I love those bands where it's like you tell someone about like that sounds really dumb. I'm like, oh, it is. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend about this the other day because like, him and I are very much of the opinion that we love really dumb music. Like the dumber the better. And because like big brain stuff is awesome. Like I love some like
Yeah.
super artistic, proggy, experimental, boundary pushing stuff. But sometimes I just want something that's like caveman stupid. And we were talking about it, we kind of narrowed it down. So in our conversation, we said that the dumbest, most fun genres are slam, war metal.
Not familiar with that scene as much.
Oh, that's something. That's something else. What's the other one? Harsh noise and DSBM.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love some of that depressive black metal. Not gonna
Me
lie.
too. I love everything I listed. But
Yeah.
yes, it's very it's DSBM is like it's very self-indulgent, but I love that about it.
You know, it's really funny. I actually tweeted about this recently. It's funny you mentioned slam because I haven't quite gotten into like just like proper slam.
Mhm.
But my interest, because think I've embraced that thought broaden that like sometimes you just want very to the point metal music. I've been
Yes.
really understanding brutal death metal more. Like I just reviewed a record by a band called Torture that's just like, you know, that very rhythmic guitars, you know, just just going for the gore of it. I now I'm like really starting to love that approach.
Yeah, exactly. And that I had the exact same point that you're at right now a couple of years ago. Before that, I thought brutal death metal and slam was so dumb. Like, and not in a fun way. I was like, this is stupid. Why do people listen to this? And then I got to the point, I was like, okay, this is actually really enjoyable if you actually like stop thinking about it and just embrace how much fun it is.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that they don't think about the music, like the thought doesn't go into it, but you know what I mean. You mentioned when we were talking before the podcast, there was something you wanted to discuss, some social issues that are really important to you.
Yeah. I mean, so I am really I think it's really important to me to kind of just highlight and be a voice for queer inclusion in metal. I mean we've come a long way. More artists are getting the limelight and kind of just being accepted as great metal artists. But I mean, I think that wouldn't have been the case 10 years ago, and we're definitely not there. And I mean, even on my channel, like most of the time I just ignore it, but I do get a lot of transphobic comments. Like it's just part of putting myself on the internet. It doesn't really bother me as much anymore, but like there's still kind of that animosity within the scene. And the more I think queer people are like highlighted and have their presence known within the scene, because there are so many fans and people who make underground metal within this community, the better it's going to be.
Right. I think you're definitely right. I think it's a case of normalizing it. People don't see it. People see it as other, and it shouldn't be viewed that way because, like you said, they're such an integral part of the scene. I mean, look at the roles that queer people have played in history of music. There's been so many amazing figures who've shaped where we are today.
Fucking Rob Halford. I mean,
exactly. I think to your point as well, I think you're right. We've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go in that aspect. And not just in the metal scene, in every scene. Because I mean, you look at hip hop and stuff, and it's exactly the same in that scene. They've got so many issues with homophobic lyrics and that just ignorant stuff that comes out of there. So a lot of genre and country as well, obviously. A lot of genres have a long way to go. Pop's always been ahead of the curve with that stuff because it's always been a much more open and accepting scene because it's such a diverse range of music, I think.
Yeah. This is going to be an interesting point that like you wouldn't expect like a metal journalist to bring up, but I wanted to like you think about like the what it was called like the disco demolition, where like in that baseball stadium where they were told to bring their disco records and they burned it and I'm not
Yes.
like I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of that music personally, but it's just kind of because I'm into heavier stuff. But
Yeah.
like the obvious like all the things, the homophobia, the
Hmm.
racism, the misogyny that was like, okay, this is music that like those that we deem not less than are into. That's why we think rock and roll is the real music. Like, I mean, like, and it's so the fact that that wasn't as like obvious to people back then just shows how far we're coming in music in general.
Right, definitely. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think metal has a very macho aspect to it as well, very heterosexual macho aspect to it, which I think is something that directly clashes for some people that can't correlate those two things,
Mm.
which is really sad because they're completely separate things. And for some reason that threatens them, and I'm not sure why.
Sure. Metal is a very aggressive genre.
Mhm.
But like aggressive sound,
Exactly, it's different.
aggressive, yeah, like aggressive lyrics. I don't think has to be synonymous with like
Masculinity.
male. Just
Yeah,
like
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think people can't separate those two things for some reason, but they're not actually the same thing at all.
no, no, it's not.
Uh, I think it's something that rock music dealt with as well. It's the exact same problem in rock music. I don't know how
What
you I don't know how you defeat that. It's a tough thing to fix.
I think the punk scene somehow kind of is way ahead of the metal scene in that you had the whole Riot Girl movement. There's so many like trans punk artists
Oh yeah.
prominent in their scene. And I'd say the metal doesn't have it. Just seems like we're behind.
Yeah, I think so. Punk's really it's interesting because it's really become one of the most accepting genres out there. It's become a
Mm.
safe space for a lot of people. And it's a lot of the lyrics have shifted to actually be inclusive of gender politics, identity politics, and stuff. It's been an interesting thing to see that shift.
Not to say that there aren't like you know really just kind of nasty people in electronic music because there definitely are, but for the most part, that genre seems to be from like an outsider perspective seems to be the most like progressive in terms of acceptance right now. I mean, you have
Mhm.
just kind of so many queer DJs and producers just at the top of like the game there. So
Yeah, even stretches like through to like industrial and stuff. Like industrial
mhm.
gothic scenes really accepting of that stuff as well. Very open minded.
Yeah.
So we actually have something relating to this coming out soon. So we're going to have a charity sampler called Battle Hymns, Triumphs, and Transitions, which is a dungeon synth charity sampler with all proceeds going to Center for Transgender Equality.
Love it. That's incredible. I'm really appreciative that people are putting energy towards those causes.
Thank you. Yeah, people really got on board with it. It's been awesome. I think we have like 46 or 47 tracks submitted from different dungeon synth artists. So it's going to be really cool to see that come out. And the album art is it's really cool. It's like a old style medieval painting of a knight riding a horse, but he's holding a spear with a flag, the trans flag flying behind it. So
That's incredible.
I think it's going to do well.
Yeah. And when's
So
that coming out again?
So we actually don't have a release date just yet. It should be August though. We're aiming for first week of August and maybe slightly delayed. But if we can manage first week August, it would line up perfectly with Bandcamp Friday. So that would be great because we'll make some more money for the charity at that point. But
Well, make sure you send me the links. I'll make sure I'm promoting it on my end as well. So
awesome, thank you, and thank you
yeah,
for sharing and promoting our last one, the mental health stuff that we put together.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's also an important topic and something I care about deeply. So
Me too. It's that's something that's very personal to me. Both with myself, my wife, my friends, family. I've had a lot of experience in that area, so. I think it's kind of impossible in today's age to not be affected in some way by mental health, either you or someone you know.
yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, I myself, I mean, I see a therapist, I see a psychiatrist. Like I'm very familiar with it, and I know so many people that that have struggles, and it's an important thing, and I'm glad people are talking about it more. It's not as taboo.
Exactly. I see a therapist and a psychiatrist as well, so I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I really it's so important to normalize that as well because I mean, especially there's a culture of viewing mental health as like a weakness, and it should be viewed just like any other health issue. There's no difference, in my opinion, between having like bipolar or having cancer. There shouldn't be a stigma attached to one and not the other.
No, I mean 100%. I mean, mental health affects people's ability to work. It affects people's social lives and
Mhm.
in ways that people haven't given the same allowances for, or kind of made ways for people to kind of exist in ways that they need based on whatever mental health issue that they're going through.
Exactly. And I mean, when you think about it, it's completely a disability. It should be. It just people seem to think of disabilities as something you can see, but
Mhm.
it's not. I mean, that's why if you do have certain mental health problems, you can actually get disability payments because the medical community and the government view that as an equal level of disability as someone who is in a wheelchair who can't work.
Which I mean, I'm thankful for. I mean, I'm glad that people are have access to that. I mean, they should.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, in the US is like I came from a country where we had public health care, so that's a whole different discussion. But
Yeah.
the US and its approach to healthcare and mental health is a topic I probably shouldn't go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, if I yeah, we don't have to go down there, but I feel like if from what the conversations we have had, I feel like we probably have a very similar opinion on that. So.
Yes, I would say so. Okay, we'll switch to something a little more upbeat.
Yeah,
I would
sure.
love to hear about some of the local foods in your area and what people should check out if they ever visit. Actually, I don't think you told people where are you based?
Yeah, I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Great. So Minneapolis, Minnesota, if we got like a weekend in town, what are we going to eat?
Yeah, so I'm lucky to live in a city with that's very diverse. We have a quite a large Vietnamese population. So in fact, kind of in my area, there are so many pho places. Like if you want pho, you
Nice.
will find it in Minneapolis, as well as ramen. My favorite pho place is Pho Ta Bay. If you like banh mi, there are also great banh mi spots all over Minneapolis. We're not much of a pizza city, but if you are interested for some reason, like that coal-fired, like more flat type of pizza, that is very popular in Minneapolis. Like we have quite a few places that specialize in pizza that way. I am I'm a vegetarian personally,
Mhm.
but there are vegetarian versions of a dish that kind of got popularized in Minneapolis called the Juicy Lucy, and it's a kind of an inverse cheeseburger. Like the cheese is stuffed into the patty. It's almost excessive.
We've
So
actually
many.
I was gonna say we've actually had some guests from your area as well who've also talked about the Juicy Lucy. That is
Really? Okay.
yeah, that's a favorite.
Uh, there's a lot of great Ethiopian restaurants. I mean,
Cool.
another thing about Minneapolis is there is a high East African population. Part of the reason is because Minnesota is a state that has taken a lot of refugees, especially from that part of the world. So as a result, we a lot of great food has migrated over here, which I am happy about.
That's awesome.
Um,
I love East African food. It's fantastic.
mhm.
I tried making I can make it at home, but the only thing I always get wrong is the injera, the bread.
Yeah, oh
The
yeah, the
thing.
spongy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard to make right.
Um, I guess some Maddie trivia, some Beaver Mosh knowledge. If you listen to this podcast, this might be. I mean, I'm sure I've said it somewhere, but uh, my absolute favorite food, my culinary obsession is pancakes. I love pancakes. Um, and my favorite place in Minneapolis, it's where I take like people who visit me to. Is this kind of this place called Modern Times. If this is not your thing, you might not be interested, but it's like this very like grungy diner. But it's it's a very progressive place too, and there's a lot of vegan options as well. There's always playing cool kind of like post punk music in there, but the pancakes, they have great pancakes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to one of those pancake places with the griddle in the table where you make it yourself?
No, that's a thing. I've never been to one of these.
Yeah, there's one in San Diego, which I haven't eaten at yet, but I mean to. And then there's one I used to go to in Portland. I lived up in Oregon for a while. That's called Slappy Cakes. And so you choose your batter. They bring it out in like those ketchup squeeze bottles, the big ones with the screw-on lids. They bring out the batter in that, like it's huge. You make like that big of batter, and then you choose your mix-ins, and then you choose your sauce, and then you choose toppings. So like I got peanut butter batter. It was great. I put white chocolate chips in, and then bacon on top and maple syrup, and it was phenomenal. And then you just cook it in the table like a Korean barbecue style.
Oh, I'm getting emotional. Like I really have to find a place like this. Maybe I'll find one in another city. Maybe that is going to be my mission now.
Yeah, it's a fun time. It's a cool breakfast.
Yeah.
You all just go and you hang out. You can if you each get different ones, you kind of mix and match and make each other pancakes and stuff.
Awesome.
So what do you normally get on yours? Like, how do you get your pancakes?
Typically I'm kind of like I really like blueberries in my pancakes, which is
Nice.
the maple syrup and the butter. I have done peanut butter. There is another diner in the city that kind of offers that, and it's always good. You gotta definitely either have some coffee or water with that because it get really sticky. But
Yep.
I never really got into the like chocolate chip pancakes personally. It's a little too kind of, I think chocolate chips takes away from the pancakes in my opinion, but definitely do blueberries. And waffles are not the same thing. I waffles and pancakes are not the same thing. Nope, I'm not a waffle person. Pancakes.
Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Waffles very dense.
Yes.
I mean, I enjoy waffles too, but they are a very different beast. And so you said you're vegetarian, but you love like banh mi and pho. What do you normally get on your what do you get in your banh mi and pho if you don't do meat options?
Yeah, so there are not every pho place, but a lot of pho places will offer like a vegetarian broth, and then like a tofu or just a veggie, and then a lot of the banh mi places offer mock duck options, which I don't know what duck tastes like, but it's supposed to be kind of the similar texture.
Okay.
It chews like a meat, and it's very popular. At least up here. I don't know if it's like popular nationwide, but I can find it at most Asian restaurants in Minneapolis.
I'm sure they'd have it here as well. Next time I'm at a restaurant, I'll have a look and see if it's on the menu.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm kind of lucky because I live right now. We're halfway between. They call it Chinatown, but it's so much more. It's like a mix of Korea, Vietnam, China, Japan, Filipino, like all that. Any Southeast or Central East Asian restaurants you can think of are all in this area. And then on the other side of my house is Little Persia. So that's all Middle Eastern food.
Oh.
And then mixed in between the two, because the San Diego is obviously like just a ton of great Mexican food. So I'm very spoiled in that sense.
Yeah. I also live very close to kind of what's known as Little Mexico in Minneapolis, Lake Street. It's just a street of great taco places and Mexican restaurants, and even if I don't go there, like there are so many. I can just open up like the DoorDash app and infinite taco options.
Yeah. Try that down here. It's like 100. It's like 400 taco shops you can get on DoorDash here. It's kind of tough though, because it's like you don't know what to choose, and they're all highly rated. So it's hard to find like which ones are actually like the best ones.
And then then Minneapolis has like a huge food truck scene. So actually, like one of my favorite places to get tacos is actually a truck. It's called Taco Taxi, and they don't have a brick and mortar store. They're just a truck, but they travel around the city and they also deliver, and it's great.
Food trucks make some of the best food, honestly. Like they're phenomenal because they have to nail it because like that's all they do. They do a couple items, they have to do them really well.
Yeah. It's a simple menu, but executed very well.
There's a chain of trucks in San Diego that does specifically seafood style Mexican, like Baja, California, which is like the seafood style Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like $3 for like a taco the size of your face. And it's phenomenal. It's just stupidly good. And they have like 4 or 5 locations. But the tip for anyone who's visiting San Diego or lives in San Diego who hasn't done this yet, you can walk across the border to Tijuana, which I've done. And there is a bunch of really, I mean, obviously, anything you get over the border is fantastic. But if you're one of those people that kind of wants to keep it a little bit more like hipster style, there's like a gastro district that has like phenomenal tacos for like $1.50, and then margarita, like the best margarita you can get for like $4.
Damn, that sounds great. I mean, I didn't realize you were that close, but yeah.
I'm like with about an 18-minute drive from the border where I live.
Cool.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
The nice thing is, like, if you ever want to fly anywhere in Mexico, there's a border crossing you can walk across the Tijuana airport, and then it's a domestic flight instead of international, so it's about a third of the cost.
That's nice.
Yeah. I was talking to someone on the podcast this week who lives in Vancouver, and he takes a bus to Seattle and flies from there, because it's the same thing, because it's then a domestic flight within the US instead of international, so you pay like half the cost.
Do you still need a passport?
I actually don't know. For Canadians, I'm not sure if they need I'm assuming they would. Apparently, you never used to need one to go like through Canada or to Mexico, but it's all changed since 9/11. Everything changed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you mentioned as well that you like to play video games. So what are you playing at the moment?
Yeah, I am an avid, obsessive, old school RuneScape player. Actually, if anyone's not familiar, RuneScape is it's an MMORPG that's been out for 20 plus years, and it still has kind of a dedicated fan base of people who were nostalgic, who played as a kid, who played as adults. Me being one of those. What's great about that game right now in kind of this period of my life is that if anyone has played RPGs, you're probably familiar with the concept of like XP and kind of training skills. And there's RuneScape is a game that has a lot of active components. You know, there's bosses, there's raids. There's a lot of things you just kind of have to grind out that you don't really have to pay that much like active attention to, but you still got to kind of do. And so that type of stuff, I'm always doing while I'm editing. Always in the background. And it's great. And I love the game because it's just like, you can see your progression. You can kind of watch your character get stronger as it interacts with the world. And there's just so much rich lore and so many like areas to explore in the game. So that's what I've been playing.
Awesome. I actually remember when that came out. I was in like primary school and a bunch of my friends were obsessed with it. So that game has been going forever.
There's actually 2 versions of it now. It's split like I think like 10 years ago, or maybe even more than that. And there's RuneScape 3, which I don't play. I've never actually tried it. And it's very different, looks very different. And there is now and I think World of Warcraft kind of did this concept too, but rebooted the game from older servers, and there's actually 2 parallel RuneScapes. And the old school version that I play still gets constant updates, like just new content, but it has its own timeline and just different content since like a certain point than RuneScape 3. Yeah.
Interesting. It's crazy how some of those online games have just like have never lost popularity. Like the amount of people that still play GTA 5 online is astronomical. It's crazy. It's just like people still play that every day. And then same with it. What's that other game? Killing Floor, I think it's called. People have been playing that for like 10 years now.
Yeah. And a lot of games also are, get remastered or, put in a new console or just re-released or just kind of get new life. Like I know people still play Skyrim like a lot, even though that game is, I was in high school when that came out and well out of high school now. I mean,
there's still people that play, what was the first one called again? trying to think what the first game in that series was called. It wasn't Morrowind.
Morrowind was before. No, so yeah, there
Morrowind.
was Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim. I don't know what came before.
Yeah,
off the top of my
Morrowind.
head.
I know a lot of people that still play Morrowind and love
Yeah,
Morrowind, even
that's
though it's so
wild.
old. That is huge. Like that game map was like stupidly large.
I would think I was too young to really have any experience in Morrowind, but I did play Oblivion.
I got into Oblivion.
Yeah,
That's why I started playing the series, and then Skyrim is one that I did come back to and have come back to many times over the years and started a new game again.
I've been tempted to like get it on Steam, but like I don't know if I have like with doing this channel right now. If I don't know if I have a time to like really just like dive
Yeah.
into another massive game like that. But
That's the thing. Like I can't, like with all the other stuff I'm doing with music, I kind of had to give up video games to some extent
yeah,
because it's just like it's so hard to find time to do both.
unfortunately, yes.
And then
Plus, I work a full-time job.
yeah, same. Me too. I've got like the full time job. I have the website. I have the podcast. I have a record label. It's like it's
Yeah.
so much. And then I try to also like be physically active. So like I go hiking, I do kickboxing. Like, you know, it's not life is too short. If I could have two of me working at all times, it would be great.
Oh, I know. I get home and I'm like, I wanna I just want to do all the things. I want to read my
I know,
books, I want to see my records, I want to play with my dog, I want to game, and I want to record content, but I
right?
can't do all of those in a day.
I know. It's like when people tell me they're bored, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, how are you bored? Like, I haven't felt boredom since I was a child. Like, it's like there's no time to be bored. There's too many things I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh Fortunately, I've been so busy, but I am very excited. I've never been to Maryland Death Fest, and I have uh bought my passes and got my everything set up. So that's 10 months away, but I am going to be taking like my 1 week vacation to Baltimore for that festival, and I am so stoked. My Dying Bride, Ahab, I just can't wait. I am beyond excited for that.
We'll see you there because we have tickets to all 4 days.
I have 4 day passes too. I can't.
Yeah.
We'll have to meet.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
we actually just got tickets this week to the pre festival, the
Yeah,
Wednesday.
I thought about it, but like I just couldn't justify it anymore. And also like I kind of like the way I had planned it, like I think I'm gonna like take a day before the 4 days and like just like explore Baltimore, do some things.
Yeah, Baltimore's
But
really cool. I went last year for the first time to Death Fest, and we took the day before to just do exactly that, like explore the city. And there's a lot of really cool stuff there. Really good food.
yeah, I heard the aquarium. I'm gonna. That's kind of something I'm planning on seeing. I heard it's
Okay,
pretty
yeah,
great. Yeah.
people told us about that as well. We did the Museum of Modern Art, and that was pretty sweet.
Okay.
And then there's a really cool historic district that's like on the waterfront that's got like really cool architecture. I think the oldest still running saloon in the country is there.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome.
Edgar Allan Poe drank there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then there's a cool, pretty big record store that we hit up as well.
I can't wait. I'm going to be spending a lot of time kind of researching what I need to do in Baltimore before I get there. I have lots of time. Can't believe it's already sold out like, almost a year in advance, but it
I
is.
know, I know. It's because there wasn't one this year. I think it's because there wasn't one this year, so everyone's like bought ahead for next year as well.
Yeah.
But also the lineup is just absolutely stacked, like stupidly stacked. There's so many bands that I want to see on that list. It's crazy.
It might not be like one of the headliners, but the band that sold it for me when I saw that Spectral Wound, which is like one of my
Yes,
favorite black metal bands, when I saw their
that's
lineup, like
cool.
done. I'm in. I have to go.
I've never seen My Dying Bride. If you haven't mentioned that, like I'm very excited. I used to love My Dying Bride when I was younger. I haven't listened to them in a minute, but they used to be one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, they're I actually just bought a copy of Turn Loose the Swans in Wax. I was listening to the other day. It's such an amazing record.
It's a great album. I thought they kind of had like a bit of a revival when they did that A Map of All Our Failures. You know that album.
Yeah, I am familiar with it.
I really liked that one. It was like a really different sound for them. It went really like funeral doomish, like kind of like Paul Bearer influences. I thought it was really cool. But I like all most of their albums, but that one was like a return, like peak in late career for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're just I mean, nobody. I mean, I was actually talking to a guest on my show about this recently, but nobody really nails that like that gloom and that bleakness and that sorrow, but like also marrying it to just a heaviness and does it
Yeah,
so convincingly.
definitely. Yeah, I'm just having a look at the list now, the lineup. Like, I've never seen.
Gorguts?
Yeah, I know. I've never seen Gorguts. I'm stoked for that. And Primordial, like I love Primordial. I can't wait to see them. Aura Noir, I've always wanted to see them. Great band.
Oh,
Ahab. It's too many. They said they're
yeah,
still announcing one or two more in December as well. It's not even completely
I know.
announced yet.
1349. It's
Yeah,
stacked.
100%. Avulsed, Tankard, Sacrifice,
Yeah,
Forbidden.
as Sacrifice, Forbidden. So a lot of like classic like Bay Area bands are gonna be there.
Yeah.
Like,
And then the day before, it's like Atheist, Sodom, Milakesh. Uh, who else was it?
it was gonna be Worm, but they had to drop off.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of names. Actually, Sodom was the big get.
So I haven't actually seen. Like Sodom was one of the only big, like really big thrash bands I haven't seen. So for me, that's a big one to tick off the list. Who was the other one? Oh yeah, it's Midnight was the other one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and Crypt Sermon, who I actually really like. I'd love to
I
see
like
them
Crypt
live
Sermon a
too.
lot.
It's like one of my favorite modern epic doom metal bands. Are you a Candlemass fan?
I am.
Me too.
Candlemass, Pentagram, that old like classic doom movement, Saint
Yeah,
Vitus, those bands.
I love that stuff. Like Candlemass is in my top 10 bands of all time. But
Okay,
who do you go for vocalist wise? I know it's a whole thing, but
you know I I'm probably not as like into their discography as you.
okay.
I did like the last Candlemass record, but for the most part, I'm mainly familiar with like their first couple.
Okay, so Messiah
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes.
Okay. He's fantastic. For me, it's like a two-way tie between him and Rob.
Okay.
Because I just really like Rob's like energy. He brings like a speed and a power to the music. I
Sure.
was really disappointed when he left the band because I saw them live for the first time this year, and like, I mean, they're one of my top favorite bands of all time, and
Okay.
I feel really bad saying this, but I was so disappointed, and like, it's
Yeah.
hard for me to even say that, but I think they just didn't have the energy on stage and the presence. I think that
Okay.
some older bands still have it, and some older bands don't have it. And they're still making great music, but I think their live show their age is showing.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is they went back to their original vocalist from the very first album, and
Sure.
I've never been a big fan of his. I never thought he had the power or like a really distinctive voice like the other vocalists that they were with. So I think it's a combination of me being disappointed by him being the vocalist and then them just being kind of old and tired. And it's not their fault. They've earned the right to be.
No.
They've been around for a long time. It's just for me, it was a bit just. I wish I'd seen them earlier in their career. Is all.
I mean, they kind of coined the concept of like epic doom. Like so many
Yeah,
bands still
exactly. So I
look
was
look
hoping
back at
like
them.
the big sound and the big energy because it's meant to be so
Yeah.
epic. Um, and I think what didn't help as well is the band that opened for them as a young up and comer, and they were just like infectious energy on stage. Like they were like the crowd was going wild. It was like blasting. Like the people were
Yeah.
moving around the whole time, and then it switched from that to them. So it was just a bad transition.
At I've been to shows like that. Like I recently saw Sepultura creator and Death Angel.
Oh,
And Sepultura was the headliner, but and also they don't have Sepultura's lineup has changed quite a bit, so it's not really like the original
Sepultura.
Sepultura, yeah.
Yeah,
But like they just didn't have the same like stage presence as Creator or Death Angel, and it just
yeah.
kind of like okay, I mean, I feel like Creator should have been the headliner because they were the best band that night, and
I I know exactly. That's
yeah,
exactly what this felt like for me as well. So I saw at Maryland Death Fest last year they had Sepultura, but with Max and Igor together, and they were only playing the early stuff. So they just played Morbid Visions and what was the album directly after that?
oh yeah, God,
What did you call that? Give me 1 second. I got just gonna
yeah,
check this real quick because they played those albums in full, like only songs from those albums. It was really cool, actually.
Schizophrenia.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, Beyond the Arise. I played Arise and Beyond
Right.
something. It was. Here it is. But they played Beneath the Remains and Arise. Only
Yeah,
I saw-
those are my two favorites. Those are like the thrash classics of Sepultura before they
Yeah.
kind of went into their groove metal direction.
Yeah, those are my favorites as well. And they only played tracks with those albums, and it was Max and Eagle together. And I was super nervous. I was like, because Eagle Max has been doing Soulfly for so long. I was like, can he still do like Sepultura heavy? And he nailed it. He absolutely killed it.
So I am. That's great to hear. I'm like confused as to like what even is Sepultura now, because because like Max does a project and does Sepultura tunes, but doesn't have like the name, but sometimes performs. Like I don't really understand like what legally is happening there. I know there's like something happened. There's like some type of riff, but like it's like very confusing.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's been really weird, hasn't it?
Yeah.
and then they randomly just re-recorded that album as well, which was really they did a great job. It sounds fantastic, but I was like, what does this mean for Sepultura?
Yeah, I haven't actually listened to it yet, and the only reason I haven't listened to it yet is because when I was like going through stuff and like prioritizing what to listen to, was like, is this a new release? I don't know what this is. What do I call it? Is this something I should be reviewing? What is this? It's just like a re-recorded like.
Yeah, it's a re-recorded version, but it's cool. It actually sounds pretty different. It's like worth checking out.
Okay, note it. I will check that out then.
Because I was cautious about it as well. I was like, do I really want to listen to this? I don't know. It could be like a gimmicky thing. I don't know how it's going to sound, but most people I've spoken to were really impressed with it.
Okay, heard.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we are coming up on time here, so I have 2 more questions for you.
Sounds good.
This last one's going to be like a bit of a put you on the spot thing, but if you were trapped on a desert island, you had a solar-powered Discman and 3 CDs to listen to until you got rescued, what would you want to have with you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I would probably let's go Human by Death.
Nice.
Titles. I'm thinking I'm gonna go Hatred for Mankind by Dragging the Sunlight.
Okay, that's a great album.
Yeah, which they are playing that live at Maryland Death Fest.
Yes, I saw that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I kind of want to like, if there's 3, I kind of want to have some variation, right? Like maybe something a little more melodic. What I'm gonna go Imagination from the Other Side by Blind Guardian.
Nice. I love that album. Yeah, good choice. I have that on vinyl, actually. It's a great album.
Yeah, it's my favorite Blind Guardian.
Right. Yeah. Very similar taste, because I have that on vinyl. It's one of my favorite Blind Guardians, and then I also have a Death Human shirt. So
awesome, yeah.
Great album. Cool. Last question then. This is a super simple one for you. But if people want to listen to your podcast, watch your reviews, support you in any way, follow you, what are the best places to do all of that? Yeah,
so you can obviously find me on YouTube. It's Beaver Mosh, and I do reviews. I very much, I think something that kind of distinguishes me from maybe other metal reviewers on YouTube, at least, is that I very intentional about reviewing things that are not necessarily getting other reviews on YouTube. Like I want to go and kind of really dig through like the underground really and give it to you. And I interview a lot of bands too. And so you can find it all on YouTube. And then I'm very active on Twitter as well, which is also at Beaver Mosh. I don't know what Beaver Mosh means. Never have. I just picked the name. But yes.
I was thinking about asking that, but I was like, I don't know if there's a reason behind it. I think it's just a cool name. It's
no,
like a Grizzly Butts, that
Grizzly Butts. There's like, there's Stereo Gum. There's just like this. It's a music blog or record label thing. Just kind of pick 2 very just funny words that go together and just kind of roll off the tongue. That's what it was.
That's how I came up with Cave Dweller Music. I was like, what can I think of that like sounds kind of like underground and metal. Like, cave, what lives in a cave? A dweller, cave dweller.
Hell yeah.
There's those what are they called? Those name generators you can use that it's like
Yeah.
for metal band names. Yeah, I think a lot of people use those. Great. Awesome. And if people want to submit music to you to actually be covered or come on the podcast on the YouTube channel, is the email address is on the YouTube channel, correct?
It is, and it's also it's beavermoshmetal@gmail.com. I'm always checking it. I will see it. I get so many promos. So I mean, I can't like promise like coverage if you do send, but I will at least open the email. Like I can at least tell you that.
Awesome. Yeah, we're exactly the same. We get like 40 to 50 promos a day. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you get through what you can, but you're only human.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no, it was an honor to be invited. I've looked at some of the guests you've had, and it's impressive. So I'm honored to be in such good company. So,
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And for everyone listening at home, thank you so much for tuning in, and come back next time. We'll have another guest for you.